primary
but
factors determine combat
we haven't
distances in
got there yet,
conventional
guys.
warfare: terrain, equipment, and circumstance. Drop infantry
Let's
into
get
a
on to
desert
this
with
episode.
sightlines for miles, but then give them just muskets, and they can't really do anything without closing that distance. Drop infantry with fancy rifles and magnify optics into the jungle, and despite all their well wishes, if they can't detect the enemy, then it doesn't matter what modern rifle they're using. So how come in Ukraine, a relatively flat place with warfare being conducted with drones, thermals, planes, tanks, and pretty much anything modern they can think of short of a nuke, why is combat distance so close between infantry? This is the question that I will answer in this video, but in order to do so, I need to make a disclaimer and clear up some misconceptions. This is a very complex subject with many moving and constantly evolving parts, and so when discussing this topic, I need to generalize. I need to make this disclaimer because I can't cover every exception, outlier, story, and scenario in the history of modern combat. At least, not if I want to get this video out before I die. So please bear with me. Don't hit me with the, well, one time in June.
If you think about it, though, I'm just giving my little 1-2 before we get into it. But modern war has always ended up to be real close combat, regardless if we have sniper rifles, long range weapons. It all dwells down to eventually close combat. It started from close combat, then it went to long range, and it's like it's a medium ground, but then it's still close range is what gets you the win.
2005, stop it, all right? There are exceptions to everything I say, as there are exceptions to just about everything in life. And with
That's
that
my
being
take
said,
on it.
in this video, when I talk about combat distances in modern combat, I am referring specifically to direct combat between conventional infantry versus conventional infantry as observed in Ukraine. Whether that be an assault team attacking enemy defense lines or two patrols running into each other, it doesn't matter, as long as direct infantry versus infantry combat is observed. What this does not include are situations such as like an assault team heading to an objective and being repelled by enemy artillery, or a combat patrol being taken out by FPV drones and mortars, or a marksman picking off a target from a mile away.
Man, disclaimer real quick, but drone warfare, that's really finna change the game of this war shit as far as current.
So on and
Don't
so
even want to
forth. And
think about
obviously
that.
there are more examples than just this. This is because in the latter situations I mentioned do not fit the criteria of direct combat between conventional infantry versus conventional infantry as observed in Ukraine. Also, at the time of making this video, the Russo-Ukraine war is still going on. Data for combat distances for the aforementioned criteria are based on both Ukrainian and Russian after-action interviews, footage from drones, GoPros, and other media, which shows that combat distances in the mentioned circumstances are typically under 300 meters, with 300 meters being on the further end of that range. And until probably for years after this conflict ends, we won't have an exact breakdown and statistics available for combat distances. So I just want to state that. With all those
Oh yeah, if you're watching this video, man, we vibing, bro. I'm a reaction channel where we good vibes, bro. And I'm not even a reaction channel, brother. I'm just doing reactions because I can do this type of content. I'm gonna do any type of form of content I want to, brother. I'm not gonna be marginalized to one form of content. I'm gonna do this, that, and that. With some of that back there too. With some up there. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? You got your get y'all smoke, roll up. Tote one with your boy, pour a shot with your boy. Let's get into this video, man. It's pretty dope, man. This what's going on right now, man. You gotta pay attention. What if they bring the drafts back?
disclaimers being made, let's start off with clearing some misconceptions
You don't want
about
that to happen.
modern combat. Scopes are not magic. Alright, so there's this disconnect between what a magnified optic is and what it can do. For this following segment, I'll pick the Trichicon ACOG with a 4 times magnified optic to use in my examples. Obviously, there is a much wider selection of magnifications and optics to choose from in real life, but I am just going to use the ACOG for my example because it is iconic, well known, and I'm almost certain that people know about this optic through like video games and movies and other media. Disclaimers being made. Let's start off with clearing some misconceptions about modern combat. Scopes are not magic.
Brother, why is
takes
it like,
place during the
ah,
winter
yeah,
where there
go.
are no leaves on the trees and foliage is
It was
minimal.
showing the,
And
it was
yet,
showing
look
all
at how
that
much
extra
obstruction
stuff
there
on the
still
screen. I
is.
ain't want me to
Remember,
show.
most people in a firefight tend to not stand straight up in the open if they can help it, for obvious reasons of not wanting to take like a piece of lead or shrapnel and not from parts of the body. So when you hit the ground, or at least lower yourself to the ground, all the branches and debris and rough patches of terrain and grass and so forth become a much more prominent thing in your vision. An example I can give that most people who play military games can relate to is when you're in an open field but then you go prone and suddenly you're staring into a bunch of grass. As again, optics are not magic. Even with a magnified optic, it does not give you wall hacks and the ability to see through foliage or debris obstructing your vision. Keep in mind too, I gave pretty tame examples. I gave examples of enemies at or under 100 meters. I gave examples of combat footage in the winter where there is minimal foliage. I gave examples of enemies literally less than 50 meters away, if not less than 20 meters away. And also, if you are still not convinced, keep in mind that visual identification of a target is just one aspect of what an infantryman in combat needs to deal with. They also need to deal with keeping track of.
Yeah, bro, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I feel like, yeah, cause in the games, in the games, I mean, if you play Battlefield, spotting enemies, that's probably the hardest. PUBG and Battlefield, the old ones, them games used to be real hard to spot people on. Like you gotta think about it, this is real life. Nobody's trying to die, bro. They trying to get in the best camping spot so they can motherfucking get the fuck out of there alive. Nobody's gonna be running and gunning like the CPUs on shooting games, bro. You run out there lacking, bro, you gonna get hit when it's cracking.
Everything on the ground, in the air, and around them to make sure that they don't get blown up or lost and then blown up. So imagine literally fighting for your life, stressed, filled with adrenaline, and looking all around you while also having to detect camouflaged enemies. Drones, of course, help drastically with spotting, but drones can go down. And even with visual assistance via drone, the infantryman still needs to physically line up the sights or at least know where to aim their rifle or grenade launcher. As again, drones help infantry, assuming they're on the same side, and no one's denying that. But once a drone spots someone, and if that drone doesn't have any offensive capabilities, that enemy still needs to be eliminated. So how do you do that? By seeking out and destroying the enemy. Of course, a friendly FPV drone would be preferable to sending a guy up to the enemy with grenades and a rifle, but in this example, I am talking about conventional infantry versus infantry combat. Not to mention the fact that FPV drones or drones in general aren't always available and can be lost to enemy fire, electronic warfare, or other means. So to summarize, it is way harder to spot enemies in real life than most people think. This is the result of the enemy wanting to stay alive and therefore staying within cover and concealment as much as they can. Even with drones able to detect enemies, the act of eliminating the enemy by direct infantry action still requires those on the ground to see and identify the enemy. Any obstructions on the ground or terrain can hinder this, as optics are not magic. I want to preface this by saying that bad leaders exist everywhere, including in the military. When you see soldiers crossing an open field in combat, it could very well be that they were given bad orders, but it could also be that they are crossing the open field because they
Man, you
literally have
heard
no
that,
other
brother?
options. If an
Just think about it. When you in war, bro, it's a dude over you, unless you that dude. But the percentage of us being that dude is slim because most of us on the foot soldiers getting commanded by bro. So just imagine, bro, he got a platoon of like motherfucking 100 plus people, bro, and he just send them on. He just his calculations just wasn't correct. Not all them casualties of war, but it's just a casualty of war, right? That's why I'm like, man, I don't know. That soldier shit, man. You gotta be born for that shit to serve your. You gotta be really born for this shit, brother. Cause you gotta really have a heart to like you probably think you going on a mission and y'all finna come home whole time you on a one way in mission. And you don't even know it. Then you probably do know it, but hey, if you dedicated to your country, then fuck it. I mean, honor, death before dishonor for sure, but sending people to die, Just to gain some territory? Why we can't gain the territory and not die? Like, you have a good battle. Why we just got to be casualties of war to gain territory? That's what a lot of generals be doing though with these wars. Though I just have to get my 1-2 on that. Generals said generals would send them soldiers off and get them fucked up, and it'd just be casualty of war.
Enemy position is surrounded by open fields and needs to be taken. Unless you have ender pearls to throw to the other side, you gotta cross that field one way or another. Whether that be on foot, in a vehicle, or some kind of armor, you get my point. With that being said, combatants, at least the ones that want to live, will do their best to find cover and concealment whenever they are surrounded by danger. You are taught in the military to move in short bursts when under fire. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down is a common ditty used to remind people of this tempo. And of course, hopefully you're covered by someone while you're doing so. An infantryman moves cover to cover in short bursts to minimize the time they're exposed to the enemy line of sight and fire. What this means is that, at least in theory, if done properly, by the time the enemy sees you, moves to place his sights on you, you're already back in cover, not giving the enemy enough time to actually spot, aim, and shoot you. So, an enemy moving towards you in combat may look something more like
Booking.com.
this. Yes, and sorry for the choppy animation. Yes, I know I am generalizing. This is just to give you a feel for what I'm talking about. But this is important to understand because if you're a fan of military video games, this is typically not how people move in them. For the obvious reason that it's not that serious and your life is not on the line in a video game. But it can also be misleading if
that's not how you move on Call of Duty. Rainbow Six. Most modern FPS shooters. But there's a couple out there where you gotta play damn near realistically, like PUBG, DayZ, even the Battlefield Mil Sim lobbies. If you know, you know. Try to put y'all off. Y'all want to have that real war experience? Get on Battlefield. Like, they coming out with a new Battlefield. I hope they do it right, disclaimer. But yeah, get on Battlefield, one of the throwback one, and just get in the Mil Sim lobby. You might not like it though, cause you all it takes is one shot and you're down. But I mean, it's realistic. You gotta hide in the bush and get good angles and shots. I mean, that's realistic.
This is the impression you have of how movement occurs under fire. I keep saying this over and over again, but I need to make it clear. You don't get respawns in real life. People tend to not want to die. Once this logic is applied to everything I'm talking about, the explanation for why people do certain things becomes clear. And keep in mind that the little animation I gave is when the enemy is under 100 meters away and directly in front of you. Imagine if the enemy is over 300 meters away at an awkward angle and flashing in and out of cover. Hitting small moving targets at unknown distances is hard enough on a rifle range. Never mind while being filled with adrenaline, tired, and trying not to die. So another reason why combat distances are so close is just simply the fact that hitting targets under stress is hard, even with a magnified optic. And the further away the target is, the harder it is to hit, because again, targets aren't bright pieces of paper on a range. They are flashes of camoed people in the distance returning fire. Circumstance. Circumstance is pretty self-explanatory. There are situations where the enemy is within sight and range of your weapon, but it may not be a good idea to fire. Whether that be because you don't have the physical capabilities to deal with the immediate threat, or for whatever reason you're, separated from your squad and the enemy platoon walks by. I'm just spitballing here. But the point is that the situation you are in also affects your engagement distances alongside the terrain and equipment. So with that being said, allow me to provide a reasonable circumstance of what I've been talking about. In the example I am about to give, you and your team are assaulting an enemy trench line while being assisted by 2 friendly recon drones, which will alternate roles as one goes down to charge, as well as 2 FPV drones. This is all a part of a larger offensive along the front lines. Combat, of course, can occur in Ukraine with no friendly drone assistance. However, I am just trying to find a middle ground in this example. So in this example, I will give our side some drone assistance. Following actions that soften up the enemy, you and your assault team begin to head to the enemy position in a predetermined route. A route that is deemed mostly safe from mines. Mostly, as the closer you get to the enemy position, the more unknowns there are, which includes, of course, booby traps. The drones flying overhead scan the terrain, looking for enemies. The actual position of the enemy is camouflaged with both netting and other foliage, as any properly built position should be. meaning that while drones can make out some concealed positions, the exact movement of the enemy is unknown as they are concealed by camo netting. And so now you and your assault team are getting closer and closer. Your assault team is now within 200 meters from the enemy defenses. You look through your magnify optic to see a bunch of branches and bushes when suddenly a burst of machine gun fire and grenade launchers scatter along your position. You've been spotted. The enemy saw your drone flying ahead, got suspicious, confirmed it wasn't theirs, and radioed in their own drone support. Now the enemy is also looking for you and the firefight is on. Your first friendly FPV drone flies into the enemy machine gun position that opened fire. And now the entire front line is erupting with small arms fire, rifle grenades, and other munitions. You still have an objective to reach, so you continue to push the enemy position, with your machine guns continuing to suppress the enemy. Suddenly, after advancing 50 meters closer to the enemy, your buddy next to you gets his foot blown off as he stepped on an anti-personnel mine that he didn't see. You drag him to safety only to hear a buzzing noise indicating drones close to you. You look in the air and it's filled with moving specks. Which drone is yours? Which drone is theirs? Which one has grenades? Which one has warheads? Or are they just for observation? Even if you started shooting in the air and hit a drone, what if it's friendly?
See, bro, it's the drone, bro, look, bro, at the end of this shit, bro, it all came down to the close warfare with drones and shit, bro. You will never catch me in a war zone, bro. I'm not finna be in a war zone hiding in a hole with a motherfucking whatever it's called to protect my heat signature, just for it still to find me, and I'm not even getting shot. I'm just gonna get dropped. The drone gonna drop a bomb on me, bro. It's gonna fuck me up. I ain't seen the clips on Telegram and Twitter, bro. How they do. I've just seen the drone compilations. I hate that. I hate that for war right now. That's like y'all need to. Y'all got the stuff that y'all banned from war. Y'all need to put that in there too. It's not fair. It's not fair combat with that. Y'all gonna make the microscopic small ass drones that have 1 million of them motherfuckers just come through and destroy shit like a fucking they gonna have nano drones, bro. Them motherfuckers gonna come through and destroy shit, bro. I already can see where it's going, bro. It started from this, bro. It's gonna end up real small, bro. You ain't gonna be able to see it, bro. You're gonna die. At least now you can hear it. Now when you hear them, it make that noise. Y'all know them. If y'all look at them FPV drone videos, bro, y'all know the noise the motherfuckers make when they finna come whack you. Motherfuckers sound like a loud ass bee finna come blow your ass up.
You then hear on the radio that your friendly drone is down, taken out by an enemy drone. You have one more recon drone, but now you have blind spots when your drone returns from the front to change batteries. You make it within 100 meters to the enemy defenses. The entire time you're firing to suppress the enemy and looking down, around, and up to make sure you're not about to get lost and blown up. Your final recon drone is radioing in enemy positions and movement. But you don't have aimbot or wall hacks in real life. Knowing that there's an enemy 70 meters ahead to the left flank of the enemy contact line within a dug-in firing position is fine, but you can't exactly deal with that enemy until you actually know where he is and have visual contact of him. Your second FPV drone, your last one, has already been used on an enemy dugout with visual confirmation of movement inside by the drone. You have no more drone assistance as you are just one team in a larger offensive.
Look at dude on the right. He talking about y'all can't see through these bushes. So he pretty much know he can't do shit.
Need to be allocated and are not infinite. It would be cool to have 100 FPV drones light up all the enemies that have been spotted, but real life isn't that simple. And now you're within 30 meters of the enemy trench line. You've somehow made it this far without being killed or injured. Almost like you have plot armor. But then suddenly you hear a pop and an object tumbles through the branches and lands close to you and bang! You don't get hit by shrapnel, but the concussion from the grenade gives you a mild concussion. And then bang! Another grenade goes off near you, peppering you mildly with shrapnel, but mainly making your concussion worse. You're disoriented. The enemy knows you're within hand grenade throwing distance and is lobbing frags at you. Your team is pushed up with you, at least the ones that made it this far, and you start throwing grenades back. Bullets are flying around you. You're filled with adrenaline. Drones are still in the air, and you still have to move up while trying not to faceplant into an AP mine. You see movement in the front through branches and debris, and you realize it's the enemy. You sight in the rifle, but the enemy is gone. After all, your enemy has just as much desire to be a target as you do. Now, I'm going to stop the example here, as now we have closed well within the engagement distances I was talking about earlier. I wanted to give this example to put everything I've said to more of a visual perspective. I think examples, and not surprisingly, are one of the best ways to convey a message while also getting people to relate on a personal level. By the way, the example I gave is loosely based on real operations and combat footage from Ukraine. But do you see what I'm saying? Real life is much more chaotic than what is on paper. Not that doctrine and military education doesn't matter, but real life is just real life. So this leads me to my final very important lesson about analyzing combat distances as well as military tactics in general. Pragmatism. Military doctrine and tactics are guidelines. I am all for understanding a textbook analysis on military tactics and education, but you need to remember that these things serve as a framework for application. They are not dogmatic. In other words, knowledge from books and academia are tools in your toolbox. They are important, but you still need to know when and how to use those tools. You cannot view military doctrine as a one-to-one reflection of the conditions and the, I guess you can say, road to be followed. Military doctrine is a foundation for pragmatic decision-making in real-life scenarios. To quote the opening lines of one of my favorite books of all time, The Battle Tactics of Napoleon and His Enemies, those struggling to arrive at a genuine understanding of warfare in any historical period can never afford to limit their examination to formal doctrine treated in isolation, no matter how thoroughly or conscientiously conducted. What this means is that I notice a mistake when it comes to people doing a military analysis, is that they directly quote doctrine or other things, I guess you can say, on paper as evidence of actual application. This is also why I like to reference real footage from combat, preferably from numerous sources indicating a certain trend. Sure, these sources are still extrapolations from a much larger data set, but at least there is consistent real-life demonstrations and conclusions that can be drawn from it. Someone who does not consider the differences of doctrine in real-world application will see on-paper statistics and draw a wrong conclusion. For example, someone will know that humans see in 1 times and know that a 4 times magnification of the ACOG provides, well, 4 times magnification, and conclude that therefore a 4 times magnification increases the range or vision of the user by 4 times. While this conclusion may be true in a handful of scenarios or on the rifle range, we can see that in reality, this is not the case. Thank you for watching and making it to the end. Please take care and like and sub only if you want to, of course, and feel free to suggest any other topics or games that you want me to play or cover. Thank you so much for watching, and bye!
I'm Kevin Hart.
I'm Kevin Hart.
I am Kevin Hart.
Shout out to bro for that video.
3 primary factors determine combat distances in conventional warfare: terrain, equipment, and circumstance. Drop infantry into a desert with sightlines for miles, but then give them just muskets, and they can't really do anything without closing that distance. Drop infantry with fancy rifles and
Yeah, but at the end of the day, bro, it don't matter how much y'all try to modernize weapons, bro, and try to make them where you never have to get close to a target. It always gonna boil down to close range combat. It ain't gonna matter how many millions, billions of drones y'all make, bro. It's still gonna end up to motherfuckers close with combat. It's still gonna end up to that. Y'all gonna use the drone. Y'all gonna use the drones to destroy the world, just for it to still be close combat. Not saying people is avoiding close combat, but they kind of is. If you think about all the weapons they try to modernize, where you don't never ever have to be close to get a kill, just for when the real battlefield goes off, it always boils down to close combat. From World War I, before Christ, all the wars, swordplay to now guns, we still close combat. That was dope content, man. Make sure y'all sub up to him. His name is Rat. I don't really know how to say your name, gang. Your name is Rat, though, my boy. Shout out to Rat, man. Master Splinter, man. I hope you ain't no snitch, my boy. But I already could tell you ain't no snitch, but you coming with the official military combat for 2025. So make sure if y'all like motherfucking military content, sub up to me too and him. Sub up to both of us, playboys. Come join the community. Yeah, come join the community, man. That's all I love, though, man. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, sub up, man. I'm finna go get some chicken wings and collard greens and do my thing. Tap in, babies. Tap in, playboys. Tap in, ladies. No, I'm dumb. I'm know what I'm saying? I'm extra with it. You know, I gotta always do the most. The host with the most, man. Tuning out.